Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time, European edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Interesting Champions League in midweek. We talked about it last weekend, fellas. Steve, look, you suggested, I wonder what it'd be like to bet against those teams in the Champions League the weekend between the two legs of the round of 16, where you had 4 winners from 14 bets. Barcelona didn't play, as we know, neither did Feyenoord. Big profits because of the teams that won. But I just thought an interesting aside was the fact that if you oppose them on the Asian line, you won from 10 from 14, which just goes to show, as you were pointing out, those teams that are involved maybe take their eye off the domestic ball a little bit. A good day to you.
Well, good morning to both of you, Dan and James. And I did point it out. Doesn't surprise me one bit, because this round in particular just feels so intense for everyone. And I've got to be honest, I think across the whole of Europe right now, there's some teams that are running on literal empty. There's nothing left in their tank. And I actually think there's several teams kind of looking forward to this international break coming up. They can reset a bit, especially the ones that don't have as many international players. But again, I wouldn't be going anywhere near the teams that have been involved in the Champions League, really, or Europa League, because for me, it's a massive negative at this stage of the season.
James, what did you make of the weekend results last weekend? I mean, that huge treble in Germany with Leverkusen, Bayern and Dortmund are all losing at home for the first time since the late 80s, I think it was. I mean, Atletico Madrid also were beaten by Getafe. They were the 4 victories. But it just goes to show, and you just said, I put a line through them last weekend. You didn't want to get involved because you thought that there might be 1 or 2 odd results. You were right.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because at this time of the season, you do hear all sorts of betting theories, don't you, with regard to motivation and teams who are playing in more than one competition and all the rest of it. But the proof is if you actually record not only the score lines, but obviously the price as well, because knowing whether a team has won or lost and you thought they would win or lose is only one part of the equation. You have to know what prices they are. So what you said there about the teams that played in the Champions League, in the league last weekend, is absolutely fascinating, isn't it? Because it does show that there are trends out there if you're willing to put in the work, and record not only, as I say, the score lines, but also the prices. And I think pushing on from that last weekend, we are now in the period where, putting the Champions League to one side, motivation in domestic leagues alone is going to become a big factor. We're going to start seeing teams who are in mid-table with nothing to play for, other teams who are fighting for titles or to avoid relegation. So, we're in that period now where motivation, almost week by week now, will be absolutely crucial.
Yeah, we're getting to the final third of the campaign, if not fewer matches for certain leagues. We've got an international break coming up, as we know. Just a reminder of the boys' profit and loss so far this season. We are in profit for the show. Get your comments in via YouTube, and make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, at Because We Win. Let us know who you're betting this weekend, and also sign up to the Betting Weekly newsletter, because we've got a weekend edition coming out as well. bettingweeklystudios.com. Lots of interesting things. Power rankings as well, I believe, yes. Fellas. Steve, James, you're involved in this?
Yeah, very much so. I think Steve was as well. Lots of opinions on our the Bet Rivers Power rankings. So look out for that. It's fantastic. It's a list of all the teams in Europe in order, in our opinion, who are the strongest 20 teams in Europe. So plenty of debating points on that.
Steve, I'm imagining all of you like a big sort of coven, late into the night. With some Chinese food, with those cardboard boxes with a couple of whiskies and that, thinking, hang on a minute, I actually think that Victoria Plzeň should be 1 point higher in the European rankings.
I tried to get Bodo Glimt into the top 20, but I think that was asking too much. Do you know what the funny thing is? I had to fight kind of tooth and nail to get one particular team into the top 20.
Interesting.
And ironically, I'm actually opposing them on the show.
I love it. Those power rankings, look, they're interesting. I've had a brief glimpse of them. They're in the newsletter. They're going to be updated all the time. So when they come out, make sure you sign up for the newsletter. It is free. You get it Monday, and then you get it ahead of the weekend. Pops into your inbox. You don't have to pay for it. Just sign up, and let us know what you think when those numbers come out. We are Sunday heavy this week for the show. It's a busy show. We have got Saturday leans for you, but we've got all our official plays on Sunday, which is just a quirk of how we've done it this week, quirk of what the boys like and what they don't like. So Saturday leans to rattle through first of all as we go day by day. And we're going to kick off in the Bundesliga, Steve, with a game that kicks off 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And this is an interesting one for me because it's Bremen against Gladbach. And obviously Bremen hit the headlines with that win at Leverkusen last week. So obviously we're pressing up again with them, Steve.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was absolute madness around this kickoff time last week, not just in Germany, but all sorts of leagues. I'd just been on a gym session. I'd been in the sauna, nice and relaxed. I come out immediately and I see I've lost a bet in the Parma under. It was 2-2. So, and then I was getting messages from you, Bochum, who turned around, matched at, I think, 400-1 in play to beat Bayern. And then at the same time, Werder Bremen shockingly beat Leverkusen 2-0 away from home. I think they're about 9-1. To win 0, I'm guessing would have been, 25-1, you reckon, guys? Would have been something like that.
Possibly.
Big shock. Huge shock result. They've not been good in 2025, but the 2 wins have been against Mainz and Bayer Leverkusen, who are second and third, so work that one out. In general, Werder Bremen are better away from home. Got the 5th best away record, but only 4 teams have registered less points at home than Werder Bremen. So they're much more opposable at home. They're 33 points on the board. They're 13 clear of relegation, but they are 6 off the European spots. In other words, they're in no man's land. This is a team that are very much candidates to be on the beach early. And if you're on the beach, it can be good and bad. It can lead to some strong performances when the pressure's not on, but also some slack ones. Gladbach have won their last 3 away games. And I think for them, they've got a chance of chasing the European spots. I don't think the Bundesliga is very strong this season behind the top 2. And Mainz have done well as well. But the top 6 is obtainable for a few sides. I think it's kind of all or nothing with Gladbach. You may as well back them on the money line. Plus 190. I think if this had been plus 200 or more, it would have been my hot dog pick of the week. Draw no bet if you want security. But what use is really a draw for them? They're chasing hard. Bremen as well. They may as well go for the win. They're pretty much safe. So I think at plus 190 looks a big price to me on Borussia Mönchengladbach. Good away side, facing a dodgy home side, who it might be a bit after the Lord Mayor's show for Werder Bremen after last week as well.
That's the lean in the Bundesliga, as is this in Liga for James. This is Monaco, who are at Angers. An interesting one here because Monaco have been good at home, but not so good on their travels. James, what's the lean here?
Yeah, the lean is on Monaco, even though, like you say, Dan, they have struggled away from home. They're really short price to win this game away at Angers. They're minus 225, so I'm backing them on the Asian handicap with a minus 1 goal start at minus 141. I think Steve and I both had our reservations about Monaco this season. You cannot always guarantee a big performance from them. They're a talented side. They don't always show it, but in the last few weeks, I think they've actually got a taste now for the only challenge they've got left, which is to challenge for a top 3 spot. They've played pretty well their last 2 matches, picking up 4 points. And you've said, Dan, they haven't won away since November, but Angers, honestly, it can be the best place in League One to go sometimes if you're looking for an away win. It's a nice open pitch. It's a half-empty stadium normally. Angers don't have the biggest fan base in the world. I think that can be really encouraging sometimes for away teams. And Monaco probably have a pretty good away following here, actually. They tend to do pretty well in terms of taking fans. So I think it's a great game for Monaco. There's a real big difference in quality here. Angers really poor their last 2 matches. They lost them both to 0. They've conceded 6 goals in those games, so they're not going really well at the moment. So it's just a lean, but I'd be very surprised if Monaco don't get the 3 points here. And by backing the Asian handicap minus 1, you're at the very least going to get your stakes back if Monaco win the game.
I've got to ask you about Mika Barrett here because he's got 3 hat-tricks on the spin at home, but he hasn't scored away. But there's going to be a lot of bettors that are going to think at minus 122 if Monaco are going to win. He's a bet here. I mean, what's the vibe in France with the former Arsenal junior?
Yeah, well, he's had a fantastic start, hasn't he? I mean, the goals have been brilliant. I've really enjoyed watching him so far. He's a real good mover in the penalty box. He's found himself in space in the 6-yard box, space in the 12 metres out. He's given them really a focal point in terms of goals that they haven't had so far this season. The other striker they've got, Bril Embolo, the Switzerland international, really good striker, but a different type of player. He's more likely to move out wide or drop back and link up. So player like Bierut in a game like this, what an opportunity, because Angers are poor defensively. If he can just hold that central position, very good chance he gets among the goals here.
It'd be interesting to see what happens with Mika Bierut, because he might start attracting Premier League clubs. Arsenal are after a striker. Anyway, Saturday lean for Steve in Serie A, 3:45. Late game, interesting late game in Italy, this one. Torino against Empoli. Quite sure what the TV figures are going to be locally for this one. But even so, this is just a lean from Steve on this one. It surprised me a little bit because Torino have been scoring goals recently, but Empoli haven't. Steve?
Yeah, Torino still have a really high percentage of under 2.5 goal games. I did feel unfortunate last week, the 2-2 draw against Parma. Number one, Torino got an early goal, which changes the whole game. I feel like there was no sign of a goal, but once they netted early, it did twisted the game on its head. And then Parma, basically a guy came on called Matteo Pellegrino, a young lad they've signed from the Argentinian League, and he randomly scored 2 goals, and they were calling him the next coming of Hernan Crespo. So I felt really unlucky with that 2-2 draw. I still think Torino games are there for the taking for unders, but the biggest sort of the pick, by the way, under 2.25 goals. It's a lean, not an official pick. -121 under 2.25 goals. I want to talk about how the Serie A relegation battle's going, and unlike a couple of the other leagues in the relegation battle, I feel like the teams at the bottom in Italy are trying to grind their way to survival. Basically not concede many goals, keep it tight. You know, the likes of Parma, the likes of Cagliari, Venezia definitely, Verona as well to a degree. And you never really trust the Lecce offense, do you? So I think it's a grindy relegation battle where an Empoli are prime for this. Like their last 2 games, you know, it's been clear under territory. They were 1-0 down after 1 minute last week against Roma, and it ended 1-0. Yeah, they don't out-offer much, but they're not the easiest team to score on either. The 1-1 draw against Genoa, I got done there. They defended well. So I think this is going to be a tight game. If I had to put a scoreline, I would say 1-0 to Torino. They are the better team. I just don't really see it opening up, Dan. And Empoli, and we know away from home, are not that bad. They've had a good away record this season. So I actually thought the goal line would be at 2. So at 2.25, I think it's worth the under at -121.
It's a big Sunday slate for the European show this week. We've got both of our Kappa's 2-unit plays and both of their 1-unit plays and the same game parlay as well. And we're going to kick off with James's 2-unit play. It's in Italy, Venezia against Napoli, 7:30 a.m. Sunday Eastern time. Napoli are short price favourites here, James. Welcome return to winning ways for them after 5 without a win, and they could go top briefly with Inter and Atalanta playing later if they secure success away from a team that's got the worst home record in the league, I make it. What's the 2-unit play?
The 2-unit play is on Napoli, Dan, on the Asian handicap with a -1 goal start, which is available at -124. The reason I'm having to go on the Asian handicap on Napoli is because, like you say, they're short price to win the game. They're -215 on the money line, which, by the way, it shows just how wrong, in my opinion, the prices have been on Napoli away from home a lot of this season, because we've often backed them straight on the money line earlier in the season away from home. They'd be -117, -120, something like that. No chance at all of that price here. They're much shorter, so backing them on the Asian handicap. With this pick, Napoli -1, you'll get your stakes back. If they win the game by a single goal, you'll make a profit on Napoli if they go on and win it by 2 goals or more. But I think they had that winless run, like you said, Dan, bit of a blow for them. They've obviously managed to stay with the top teams and they're still in contention. May have put it behind them now with the win last weekend. I think that'll be great for the confidence. And for me, that win that they had last weekend really marks the start of the season running for Napoli. 10 games to go, only 1 point off the top. I think they'll look at the results they had during that 5-game winless streak and think, do you know what, we could have actually fallen a little bit further behind than that. So they're in good shape. And it's a great game for them when they know that the other two teams in the title race are going to be taking points off each other here. We're going to come on to that game between Atalanta and Inter. But I think Napoli will look at this and think, we have to get maximum points here because it's such a winnable fixture and we can put pressure on the other two teams. So I really fancy them here. Like I say, they've been good away from home this season. That's why we've backed them generally. I think the win last weekend puts them in a pretty good frame of mind. And just very quickly on Venezia, they have played the other two top teams at home already this season. They lost 1-0 to Inter. They lost 2-0 to Atalanta. So no reason for me to see why they should really trouble Napoli here. If everything goes the way I think it will, it should be a Napoli win. Will they go on and win it by a couple of goals? Well, yeah, who knows? But I think with this pick, Napoli -1 on the Asian handicap, at the very least, you should be getting your stakes back. So it's my 2-unit play, and it's available at the moment at -124.
And Steve, you've got a lean in this game as well. Similar theme, but different bet.
Yeah, I think it's a really good bet from James. I'm going to be on that myself. In addition to this, Napoli win to 0 at evens. James has just said it there. The two times that Venezia have faced the top teams at home, they lost to 0. They're not offering much at all recently. Back-to-back 0-0 draws against Lazio and Atalanta. But I don't know how they managed it. I watched those games. They were lucky not to concede goals. And in the last 3 games, they've had an XGA of nearly 5, conceded 1 goal, conceded 39 shots. I think definitely Napoli win the game. And Venezia just aren't offering anything. They don't score many goals at all. They're trying to grind their way to this survival. I don't think it's going to work for them. And look, at the end of the day, if you want to win the Serie A title, you cannot accept a 0-0 draw away to Venezia. Lazio let us down against them recently here, but Lazio were just really poor that day. I'm not even sure how good Lazio are, really. I'll have to wait and see if they do make that top 20 list in the power rankings that we've got. But Napoli are better than Lazio for me, and I think they come here and at very least win the game. I think 2-0 away win could very much be on the cards.
Yeah, we'll take that for both of our plays, but it's a 2-unit official play from James, just a lean from Steve. And James, you referenced that Atalanta-Inter game, massive in context of who's going to win the Scudetto here. Atalanta shortest price against Inter than they have been for 5 years, which is interesting. And they inflicted Juventus' worst home loss since 1967 last weekend, 4-0 reverse. And Thiago Motta's under a lot of pressure in Turin. What do we think about the big game between Atalanta and Inter in Bergamo?
Well, I think it's a fascinating game, this, because you do have different styles from the two teams and different statuses, certainly in terms of the outright market at the moment. Even though they're very close in the title, it's not much to pick between the top 3, but Inter are minus money to win the title and Atalanta are plus 600 going into the game. So if you do think Atalanta are going to do well here, you might want to look at them on the outright market as well, because that price will go if they win this match. But I don't think they will. I'm going on the tie here. It's the outsider of 3. It's plus 230. It's just a lean from me. Atalanta plus 170 to win it and Inter plus 155. It might sound weird given that we're looking at 2 of the top 3 teams in Italy, but I actually think there are more reasons to oppose them here than there are to actually back them. The reason I say that is I think Atalanta have actually struggled at times at home. I've certainly enjoyed watching them play away from home. They look more confident. They seem to feel more sure of what they're doing away from home. So I don't have a great deal of faith in them when they do play at home. And the mark against Inter would be they haven't actually done that well against the top sides this season. They did win the reverse fixture against Atalanta, but they failed to beat Napoli home and away. They failed to beat Juventus home and away. And they haven't beaten Milan when they faced their local rivals. So I think actually it's almost a tie by default pick here. And I do like the tie when it's the outsider of 3 in a game which on paper looks to be close, and this looks to be a close game to me. As I say, I think there's more reasons to maybe oppose the sides than back them. So it's just a lean. It's a fascinating matchup, but I'd be going on the tie here at plus 230.
I like that reasoning. I think Inter, I've backed Atalanta to win the title, but I think Inter might get over the line because they beat the rank and file and all the middle ranking teams, and they just grind out those sort of 0-0s, 1-1s against the best teams. And that's how they do it. And they know that Atalanta and 1 or 2 others can slip up, as we've seen. That's the big game in Italy. It's 3:45 on Sunday. Just a lean from James, the tie. let's get Steve's hot dog next. We move to Spain. 11:15 on Sunday morning Eastern. It's Sevilla against Athletic Club here. Sevilla plus 205 here. Sevilla cashed a hot dog play for Steve last week. We're going to go again here with Garcia Pimienta's team. Steve, this time against Athletic Club, who are of course, involved in European action tonight ahead of recording.
Yeah, I had to fight tooth and nail to get Athletic Club into this top 20 power rankings that we've got, and now I'm going to be against them. Sevilla did the job for me last week.
Where do they rank in the top 20?
Well, you have to subscribe to the Betting Weekly newsletter for that.
All right.
So, we'll wait and see there. But, Sevilla did the job for me last week, and it's a funny one, isn't it? It was probably my least confident official pick last week. Bit of a random one. It was more of a sort of opposing Real Sociedad, really. And I do like opposing these teams on Thursday in the right spot. And I just think Athletic Club, we don't know the outcome, what's going to happen against Roma. But I can tell you whatever happens there, that's going to be a tough game. It might even go all the way extra time and penalties. And they could be a bit of a come down. I really rate Athletic Bilbao, but away from home, their results can be a little bit dicey. They only drew at Espanyol, they only drew at Betis, they only drew at Alaves, lost to Atletico Madrid recently, so I think they're more vulnerable on the road. I really liked what I saw from Sevilla last week. I was surprised. I haven't seen a lot of them with my own eyes this season, and their metrics are just average. Having watched them, I believe that they're maybe one of them teams where they're better than what their metrics show. Sometimes a team can be better than that, and what stuck out to me was their lethal counter-attack ability. They were moving the ball forward very, very quickly. They were biding their time, able to soak up pressure, and then they hit Real Sociedad on the break quite a lot. Quite often, those breaks didn't actually result in an eventual shot, which means they're not going to get marked down for the XG and stuff. But there were some seriously dangerous moments, and I think that style will work well against Athletic Bilbao, because Bilbao will dominate the ball here. They'll have the lion's share of possession and stuff, and I think Sevilla can strike. They're in good form. I mentioned it last week. They don't lose many games, and they're now in a stage where, if you look at the league table, they may as well actually have a go and try and push towards that top six, where Betis are currently sixth. A draw is not going to do an awful lot for them. This can be the Basque double for them. They could beat Sociedad and Bilbao back to back, got them at the right time after European midweek games on a Thursday. And, as I say, they impressed me so much last week with the performance, got me the result. I thought, I am happy to have my hot dog on Sevilla again, on the money line at plus 205. It kind of pains me to go against Athletic Bilbao. I do love them, but I feel it's a really bad spot.
Sevilla in La Liga, in the calendar year, draw double chance, so that's draw and win. 9 cashes from 10, 27.67% return on investment. Took me about half an hour to work that out, so I'm saying the stat. We've got some La Liga. It just goes to show that, look, Sevilla are on an upswing. I think, Steve's bet was good last week. And I like this lean from Steve. I'm betting this one. This is just a lean for Steve. It's Rayo on the money line against Real Sociedad here. I'll give you my chat after you've given us your reasoning, Steve, because I think this is a brilliant bet.
I'm listening to you here, Dan. We had this chat a couple of weeks ago. We need to start picking more moneyline selections rather than chickening out on draw no bets and handicaps. So, Rayo Vallecano, straight on the money line here. Plus 165 to beat Real Sociedad. Almost the exact same reasoning as last week, really. Opposing the Basque side here. They've got to go to Manchester United away on Thursday evening. At the time of recording, we don't know the result, stuff like that. But if they're struggling after a home match against them, they're going to struggle after an away match. They weren't themselves last week. And, the other thing, Rayo Vallecano are a decent side. They rarely, they have actually lost a couple of games of late, but against good teams, Real Madrid, Barcelona, only by 1 goal. That draw against Sevilla suddenly not looking such a bad result, is it?
Exactly.
Sevilla, I think,
this was going to be my point. Exactly right.
And Villarreal as well. So this is actually the easiest of the 5 fixtures. I think they can get back to winning ways. And, they're another team. A draw isn't going to do a lot for them in this pursuit for the top 6. They may as well go for it. And I think we've maybe left a few big odds on the table this year. on when we've gone with draw no bet. So I think the lean's got to be on the money line. This would have happily been a hot dog for me if it had been plus 200. We weren't going to get that this week. And do you know what? This was nearly on my list for a one unit play as well, straight on the money line. For Rayo Vallecano, who are a very underrated team, against a Sociedad side who I think will struggle after Europe again.
Yeah, and the line I was going to add, and you've said it already, is just the fact, just inspect those last four. They haven't won in 4 Rayo Vallecano, but there are significant reasons. Barcelona, Real Madrid, informed Sevilla, Villarreal we know are tasty as well, and Real Sociedad, well, who knows what might happen. Win or lose, there's that emotional outlet coming into this game. We have got 2 leans in Spain on Sunday. It's a double touch, so to speak, which brings us nicely to Atleti, who are taking on Barcelona. James, obviously contrasting fortunes in midweek in the Champions League. This is a massive game, of course, in the context of La Liga, though. Might even get Steve's thoughts on this as well, but you've got a lean for us here.
Well, I've got a lean, Dan. I'll tell you what it is, but this is the single biggest price move I've seen all season in a 24-hour time frame on this particular pick. I was astonished when I looked just before we went on air. So, yeah, it's a massive game. It's Atletico Madrid versus Barcelona. My lean on the game is Barcelona tie no bet. I think Barcelona are a pretty good bet here to avoid defeat. When I picked it out on Wednesday, they were minus 137. As we're recording now, Barcelona tie no bet is minus 175. So it's an absolutely huge price move. Would it be a lean now? The honest answer is no, it wouldn't. Had they been minus 175 tie no bet away to Atletico Madrid when I was going through the prices and picking out the leans, I would have ignored it. I still think they'll avoid defeat, but obviously that price move is huge. And it's come on the back of Atletico Madrid's exit from the Champions League against Real Madrid this week, which we will all have seen or read about. So is it a factor this weekend? Well, I think it is. They've obviously played that game a day after Barcelona have played in the Champions League. It's gone to extra time and penalties. So physically, Atletico Madrid going to the weekend a bit more tired, obviously. Mentally, psychologically, I think the impact of that defeat will be, weighing very heavy as they go into this game. Barcelona have won 4 from 4 in La Liga and go into it fresher and in much better form. So I do feel Barcelona will get something here, draw or win the game. It's going to be really difficult, I think, for Atletico Madrid to pick themselves up, like I say, and be in the right frame of mind to take on what is a really strong Barcelona side. I cannot see Atletico Madrid winning this because of that. But the price move is extraordinary. Everything has clearly gone against Atletico Madrid in the market, maybe during the game against Real Madrid or since it. But they're massive outsiders now to win it. They're plus 210 on the money line, and Barcelona are plus 114. So it's incredible, really, how much movement there's been. As I say, at the price at the moment, I wouldn't have Barcelona tie no bet. So we can maybe scrap it from a price point of view. But I do think Barcelona will get something this weekend because I think they've got everything in their favour.
Yeah, as far as James is concerned, look for a way to get with Barcelona, maybe not on the tie bet because the market has shifted so much against them. I mean, this run of fixtures, Steve, for Atleti, just looking at it, they've got Barcelona again in the second leg of the Copa. They drew 4-4 in the first leg of the Copa del Rey as well. Obviously, they played Real home and away in the Champions League. Even for Cholo Simeone, the sort of mental toughness. I mean, even his aptitude for situations like this is going to take a little bit of a knocking. What do you make to this game? And obviously, Atleti missed the chance to go top with that defeat against Getafe. Very late goals last weekend, but they're still in the La Liga title mix. You can spin it all sorts of different ways. Give us your brief betting thoughts on this one.
Well, I've got to ask a question to James here. He doesn't like the tie no bet. Would he back Barcelona minus a quarter of a goal at minus 117? Would he back them on the money line at plus 114? Because this is a really brutal stage of fixtures for Atletico Madrid. We mentioned it a few weeks ago. Can they negotiate it? Have they got the fight to come back here? I'm not sure. I think that's a massive body blow. And we've seen before how seasons can just unravel in the space of a week for a team. This might be it.
Going to be incredible, isn't it, to see what happens with Atleti from here on in. But they are still in the title mix. I've bet them as well in a double with Atlanta. My season's going to be falling apart this weekend, potentially. Let's get to unit play from Steve. Steve's 2-unit play next. It's Heidenheim against Holstein Kiel. It's 12:30 on Sunday Eastern. Heidenheim are minus money favourites. Holstein Kiel at plus 265. We're not looking at the money line, though, Steve. Where are we going for the 2-unit play?
Got to be goals. Over 2.75 goals, minus 107. I've really considered being extra aggressive here and taking over 3.5 goals at plus 195, or even an Asian line over 3 at plus 130, because this could explode. I've got to put my money where my mouth is here with my theories, and it is the bottom two teams against each other in a desperate situation with only 9 games left. It feels like a must-win for both. What normally happens is there's goals. The goals should flow. And especially with Holstein Kiel games this season, I mentioned them last week as one of my leans, over 3.5, straight over 3.5 against Stuttgart, and it ended 2-2. Unlike the Serie A relegation battle, Holstein Kiel have decided their best way of defence is to attack, and they've scored goals. They've been a lot better in 2025, hitting the back of the net. They don't keep many clean sheets. They got that 1-0 at Union Berlin, but I feel that was a unique game. I think at both sides, this is probably going to be a Bundesliga 2 fixture next season, and the main reason is the defence is just not good enough for both. Heidenheim often, they don't do clean sheets either. The match last week, Hoffenheim-Heidenheim, with my SGP, I think it's about killed me with the SGP now. 39 shots in the game, and it ended 1-1. And one of the goals was a Galazzo as well. So, it's ridiculous. Which that usually means the next week we get a glutton of goals. Crazy game. So I'm going to get my money back and more here, I believe. Then the reverse fixture actually ended 1-0 win for Kiel, but I think this time neither team at all can settle for a draw. They're not the sort of teams that can scrape out 1-0s. So at bare minimum, I think it goes over the 2.5 mark, in which case with a 2.75 goal line, then it's going to be a half winner. But I think this will go over 3.5. I think there's a chance it goes over 4.5. Kiel's defence, 61 goals conceded this season. It's a huge amount. Heidenheim conceded 51 in the Bundesliga. They're not good defensively. They're gonna have a go at each other. There'll be chances. There'll be mistakes. There'll be quite a few missed chances as well, but I think there'll be goals. So over 2.75, got to be my 2-unit play when these bottom two teams meet.
Let's get to the Montpellier Saint Etienne game. Saint Etienne are featured once again on the show. I'm thinking about having a separate show. I'm thinking about approaching Nigel and Bet Rivers saying, "Can we just have a Saint Etienne show, please?" Here, would you enjoy that, Stephen James?
Yeah, sounds great. Who's that actor who was in the Oscars? I don't know anything about films these days. He had a Saint Etienne zip up top on the other day in the crowd. So we could get him involved, couldn't we? They've got a famous fan at the moment, and we love them, and we love the manager. So absolutely in favour.
How many people watching have become Saint Etienne fans? Because it's been like a soap opera each week. There's hardly been a week where we haven't mentioned them. But I think the main reason is because their style has changed so much since the first half of the season that the odds still haven't really reverted to what they should be.
Yeah. Well, let me tell viewers and listeners that it's 12:15 Sunday. It's Montpellier versus Saint Etienne. Montpellier plus 110, Saint Etienne plus 220. We've got 3 units as we did last week, but this time we've got 3 different bets. It is the bottom 2 that go head to head. So we've got James' 1-unit play, James's hot dog, and Steve's 1-unit play as well. They're all different. First of all, James, give us your 1-unit play as we welcome everybody in to the Saint Etienne section of the show.
Well, my 1-unit play is on Saint Etienne or tie, which is available at minus 148. Saint Etienne, listen, they're the away team here. They're next to bottom in the table. They're obviously struggling, but honestly, the prices on this game do not make sense to me. So Montpellier are favourites. They're plus 110. Saint Etienne are plus 220. I do not understand why Montpellier are such a short price here to win the game, because you're dealing with 2 teams who are struggling here, but actually, Saint Etienne have got 5 more points on the board going into the weekend than Montpellier. 5 points is a pretty big difference when you're talking about 2 teams who've got 15 points and 20 points. Saint Etienne have got a third more points than Montpellier on the board. Montpellier go into the game on the back of 6 straight defeats, 5 of those without scoring. So the way I came at this game was that Montpellier are really short to win it. I don't think they should be. I think they are the weaker of 2, yes, admittedly weak sides, but I think they're the weaker of the 2. Second factor on this is if you listen to the narrative around these two clubs at the moment, and I'm talking about the in-house narrative now. Montpellier talk as though they're relegated already. You know, there's a lot of doom and gloom around the club. The opposite is true of Saint Etienne. Their manager Eric Horneland has been really upbeat. He said he's absolutely confident they will avoid relegation. So I think they'll go into this game and think they are the stronger of the two sides and they can get a result. And the third factor is if you look at Saint Etienne since the start of the year, which was when their current manager Horneland was appointed, they've only won 1 out of 10 matches and they've lost 5 out of 10. But if you look at who they've lost against, they've lost to Marseille, who are second. They've lost to Nice, who are third. They've lost to Rennes, who are Lille, who are fifth. They've lost to Paris Saint-Germain, and they've lost to a Rennes side who are improving under a new manager. The teams they've avoided defeat against are bottom half sides. So, point I'm making here is Saint-Etienne very clearly do struggle against the better sides, but they've avoided defeat every time they've played one of the weaker sides, and they're obviously playing the team who are bottom of the table this weekend. So I think, if you dig a little bit deeper into their form, it's not as bad as maybe it looks at first glance. And as I say, they're too big to win this weekend for me. So I had a long look at them as a hot dog pick. You can maybe back them on the money line at plus 220 if you're feeling confident. In the end, I've gone slightly more conservative, but I do think they'll avoid defeat. So it's Saint Etienne or tie for me at minus 148.
Okay, that's the shortest price of the 3 official bets that we've got for you. We upped the ante a little bit, obviously, with Steve. And look, I played the over 2.5 last week, and I thought, when it was 1-1, this is just going to cash, but it didn't. So we need to get our money back and a little bit more, Steve. So we're going for a higher line.
Yeah, I think it's got to the stage of a season where I've got to be a bit more aggressive, Dan. I was looking back, and I think, we're talking about the Rayo Vallecano game there. I think perhaps we've left certain bets on the table this season, especially between odds of, say, plus 130 and plus 195. I actually look back at both shows. Only 10 picks have been given, if you exclude the SGP and the hot dog, between those odds, between all 4 handicappers this season. And Jack was responsible for 7 of them. Actually, quite a lot of them have won. Nigel, for example, only done one of those. It was a 2-unit pick on Newcastle against Man United, and it won. Plus 243, plus 143. So I think it's just time I've got a bit more aggressive here. I like the goals, and I could easily go to straight over 2.5 goals or 2.75 or 3 on the Asian line, but I'm going over 3.5 because you referenced that game last week, and it really annoyed me. It really, really angered me, actually. They didn't go over 2.5. I think it was the right read. We had the right chances. Both teams had a go. There was an early goal disallowed for through VAR. It would have been 2-0 Saint Etienne. If that had been allowed, it was a tight call. And what annoyed me the most, it took about 5 minutes to disallow it, and it lost all the rhythm of the game and everything. I think it would have gone way over. And I think that in this instance, I've got to go over 3.5 goals. It's actually at plus 170 now. So I'm going to try and get back nearly all of my 2 units that I lost on that game last week, because this is, again, just like the Heidenheim game in Germany, the bottom 2 sides against each other. They've got to feel like they win the game. For Montpellier, they're drinking in the very last chance saloon now. They have to win this game. If they're going to survive, they've got to win. So it's gung-ho, all or nothing. And for Saint Etienne, they're not going to get an easier fixture than this. Montpellier are losing games all the time, as James has said. And anyone thinking of backing Montpellier at plus 110, they're really, you got to think again. Think twice, think 3 times, think 10 times. You can't be backing Montpellier at plus 110. The goals should flow. Saint Etienne matches, I think every single game bar one they've scored in since Horneland took over. They've got offensive. He's got some of the offensive players improving their form. The problem is the defence. That's not going to change. I think Montpellier will get on the board, to be fair. I think Saint Etienne win. Both teams score could happen. They are better. This time they'll get the job done. I think last week, last 10 minutes, maybe both times in the sides in the back of their minds were thinking, is a draw okay? Just to keep the ball sort of floating around, and they've feared the defeat a little bit too much. That won't happen here. So over 3.5 goals for me. I nearly had my hot dog pick in this game as well, and it involves a player that James is going to come up, is going to talk about very, very soon. But this match has all sorts of betting potential. I really do think so. But for me, the official one unit play of the week is over 3.5 goals at plus 170 now. Montpellier versus Saint Etienne.
Obviously, we're talking about goals, so there's got to be a goal scorer or at least someone who has attempts at goal, which means we bring in James's hot dog, big price this weekend. James, what you got for us?
Yeah, the hot dog pick is on the over shot on target market. The player is Lucas Stassin, who's the number 9, the centre forward for Saint Etienne. It's over 1.5 shots on target. I normally go over 0.5 shots on target, usually with a midfielder. It's over 1.5 shots on target here with the centre forward, Lucas Stassin. But it's available at plus 380, which I think is a really good price. Just to make clear for viewers and listeners, hot dog picks are one unit. I've had some comments about that. Always welcome to get the feedback. So our hot dogs are all one unit plays. That's what this is. Lucas Stassin, I've really liked what I've seen from him recently. He's an interesting player. He's centre forward, a young Belgian striker. Saint Etienne player 4-3-3. He's very good at holding that central position. A lot of the chances are falling to him at the moment. He's got 5 goals in 10 starts since Eric Horneland took over as manager. That's a really good return for me for a team who are struggling. And the chances, like I say, they tend to fall to him because he's clearly been instructed to stay in those central positions. Listen, against the Montpellier side who have been defensively really poor, I'm expecting Stassin to get a stack of chances here. If he can play as he has done recently, he should find himself in scoring positions. He had 2 shots on goal against Le Havre last weekend. Both were on target. He had 4 shots on goal the week before that against Nice. 3 of those were on target. So I think the odds here of plus 380 to have over 1.5 shots on target in a game that Saint Etienne are going to try and win, that they should win. I think it's really good odds. And for those who prefer the anytime goal scorer market, he's plus 310 to score anytime is Lucas Stassin. He's actually a bigger price than the 2 guys are probably going to play out wide on either side of him. Even Cardona's plus 260 to score for Saint Etienne. And Davitashvili, the Georgia international, is plus 285. Both of whom can score goals. They cut in and get into scoring positions. But Stassin is the main man here. He is a centre forward and he's only the 3rd biggest odds in the anytime goal scorer market. So you might want to take a look at that. If that's the market you like, plus 310 is well worth a look. But for me, it's over 1.5 shots on target. I think given how this game is and how Saint Etienne are playing and how Montpellier are defending, I think plus 380 on over 1.5 shots on target is really, really big price.
That was going to be my hot dog.
Go on, Steve.
James. Stassin to score any time, plus 310. Massive odds. He's the go-to striker because he presses in the way Horneland wants. He's played in the full 90 minutes in all but 2 of his games, and he scored in 3 of his last 4 matches. So yeah. I think he's a massive price to score any time, and I might even have a nibble for him to score 2 goals or more.
There you go. Great stuff. Big pluses on Stassin, big pluses on overs, and indeed Saint Etienne, Montpellier, very much a team to fade. One brief Sunday lean in France before we get the same game parlay to finish up with. Steve, just give us your brief thoughts on Brest Reims.
Brest minus 3/4 of a goal at minus 110. I actually considered this for my 2-unit play. Really confident about them. Reims are in a huge mess. No win since the 10th of November. Lost 6 straight. They brought in, they sacked Luca Elsner. It didn't work. I think they'll make another managerial change during the international break, to be honest, and give themselves a firefighting chance of avoiding the drop, because at this moment in time, I think they're going to go down unless something massively changes. Brest, obviously this season they've dropped points because they've been involved in Europe a lot, but still a strong home record. I think they're confidently a top half team. Big golfing class here for me. They beat Angers 2-0 last week, dominated the game. Similar sort of opponent now, if not worse. So clear Brest win for me. Might as well take them on the minus 0.75 Asian handicap, because 7 of their 11 wins have been by 2 goals or more this season.
Finally, same game parlay is in the big game in France this weekend. It is, of course, Le Classique. It's Paris Saint-Germain against Marseille, 3:45 on Sunday. PSG minus 240, Marseille plus 550, draw plus 420. Just looking at 1 or 2 stats on this one. PSG have won the last 6, James, as I'm sure you're aware, in the last 5-0. And Marseille only got 1 win in the last 25 in the league, which is incredible, really, even if there has been a bit of disparity in quality. Give us your... I'll tell you what, just both of you, before we get the same game parlay, just give us your thoughts on the sort of money line or overs, because it is the big game in France. James, give us your thoughts on this one first.
Yeah, well, I had a look at PSG in the other markets on this. They're minus 240 to win. They should win. There is a huge difference in quality here. I mean, we're looking at the top two in France, but actually, there's no comparison between them. The first game was a no contest in the league this season. That was all over within half an hour. PSG won it without even having to break sweat. I looked at PSG on the Asian handicap, minus 1.25 goal start, minus 1.5 goal start. The point we've made in recent weeks about Paris Saint-Germain is they've had all these different competitions going on, the Champions League, the French Cup, the Ligue 1 games coming thick and fast. They do not look to me like either easing off or slipping up. We've seen neither of those two things happen. And we all saw that in Europe in midweek. This is a team that can run for weeks. So I don't think they'll take it easy, even though the league's already in the bag. So I think if you're looking for a big play on PSG, I think Asian handicap for them to win by a couple of goals would be the way to do it.
Steve, if you had a free $50 play, would you play on the Asian line? Would you play on the overs? What do you think? Would you play Marseille?
No, I'll play PSG on some sort of handicap. I think
plus 112, minus 1.5.
Well, then they'd probably win by one just to spite me, wouldn't they? Marseille have a bad record in this fixture. One win in maybe 15 years in the Parc de France, and that was in the COVID year. 1-0 victory. Can you remember the goal scorer? He was mentioned on this show last week. We had this quiz
question on the reverse fixture. Isn't it the guy who's in Mexico?
Gignac.
Florian Thauvin, who we mentioned last week.
Yeah, who scored last week?
Now, Gignac, Big Mac did. He did, yeah. Now, Gignac, oh, God, I loved him. I could go on forever about Gignac. But he absolutely raised it against PSG. But unfortunately, a lot of recent players haven't. Honestly, Marseille have absolutely capitulated against PSG in recent meetings. They offer nothing. They're like rabbits in headlights. And the problem is this PSG team are rampant right now. They're confident. Forget that they went to penalties in midweek. This doesn't seem to bother this side. They keep going and going and going. I think that they might pick up a massive win against Marseille here. So yeah, I suppose that's where do you know what, the free $50 bet, go minus 2 Asian handicap down, in case it's a massive win.
Hang on, hold on, caller. Plus 200.
Wow.
If you want to go minus 2, which is 2-0 win, you get your money back. We have got an official play. It is the same game parlay. When you were dialing back through all the stats for all the handicappers, do we know what we are for same game parlay since the turn of the year, Steve?
I dare even look at my record. It's not good.
You've had a few winners, haven't you? Yeah. Did we win it last week?
I did have a couple, but it's been a poor year for the SGP season for me in the SGP. James has been a lot better.
James is the same game parlay daddy. We have got the same game parlay on Paris Saint-Germain versus Marseille. James, 2 elements to it.
Yeah, 2 elements. I mean, we're talking about big prices on PSG. Steve picking one out there on the handicap. We're going the opposite on the SGP here. It's about as safe as you can get, really. But PSG or tie is the first leg of the same game parlay. I mean,
see that boat being pushed out already. PSG or tie.
How safe is that? So if PSG win the game or it ends in a draw, this leg of the parlay wins. And the second leg is PSG corners 3-way spread with a 0-1 start. Might need a bit of explaining. So it's basically start 0-1 means PSG are starting the game as if they're 1-0 down in corners, and you need them to get more corners at the end of the game with that handicap taken into account. So you need them essentially to get 2 or more corners in the game than Marseille. I think they'll do that. I think they'll attack hard, like Steve said. I think they'll be relentless. They'll punish Marseille if they can. So I think they will get more corners, considerably more corners than Marseille. So that's the SGP. PSG or tie is the first leg. PSG corners 3-way spread with a 0-1 start is a second leg. That will pay out at minus 143. And just to reiterate, the SGP is a half unit stake. That's what we do with the SGP. It's a half unit stake. It's a small play, but I do think that you've got a really good chance of this one cashing.
Look, minus 143, I don't mind that at all. You don't have to go big for the same game parlay. If you want a big same game parlay, have a look at the Premier League show this week. Just before we let you go, because obviously I've got James and Steve with me, 2 French football experts. The PSG performance over the 2 legs against Liverpool was utterly brilliant. I can't remember if any of you 2 guys have put up PSG for the Champions League. The plus 350 now, Steve. Can you see them winning it? Are they too short now? I know Luis Jones has put them up a few times, and ahead of the game in midweek said, go in again at 16s, 18s, whatever they were. Plus 350 about right now. Is everything factored into how good? Everyone knows how good they are.
Well, the time to get on them was when Lewis Jones suggested it. 16-1, 18-1. We talked on the live show yesterday. Yeah. We talked on the live show with Will White yesterday, me and him, and we both agreed. I think plus 350. Just now, it's too short. But in answer to your question, they're a serious team. They're a serious runner. To beat Liverpool over 2 legs and deservedly do it, really, that is some statement. Let's see what they've got now. They reached the semi-finals last season. They reached the final against Bayern Munich during the COVID era. Sometimes it's the fine margins now, but in Luis Enrique, he's a very, very good coach. He's got them performing as a team, and I say that crucial word. I think in the past they were reliant on some individuals more.
Markets suggest that they will beat Villa and Real Madrid will beat Arsenal. How would you price, James, a Real Madrid PSG semi-final here? I guess our power rankings might be handy for something like that. I don't know where Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain are placed, but I would imagine towards the top, if not the top 2, or certainly in the top 3. I mean, would that be a pick'em contest, or would Real Madrid just be favourites, do you think, to qualify?
Yeah, well, power rankings will be great, won't they, between now and the end of the season for exactly this sort of scenario. I think plus 350 is too short, actually. I thought they were sensational over the 2 legs, but I think Real Madrid would beat them over 2 legs, and I think Barcelona would beat them in a one-off final. My concern about PSG is they don't have the match-winning weapons of some of these other sides. If you look at Real Madrid with the likes of Mbappe and Vinicius Jr., I think Barcelona have got more match winners in their front 3. There's a lot of praise for PSG's front 3, but it's almost more to do with the movement and the pressing as much as it is with the finishing. So, listen, I think they've got a great chance of beating Villa. I think they're 3-10 to go through. I think they would beat Arsenal if it was Arsenal they were facing, so they could well get to the final. But I still think they're a little bit short in a one-off 90-minute situation. I think the 2-legged situation is slightly different, but they were brilliant in midweek. So, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's just enjoy what Steve has said. Quite right. It was a great team performance, and the manager deserves an enormous amount of credit right
now. Brilliant stuff. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to everyone over the course of this weekend. We'll keep you updated via our X feeds, and, of course, get your selections in via Twitter. If you are a subscriber to our Betting Weekly newsletter, when those power rankings come out, let us know what you think on the YouTube comments. If you've not yet subscribed and signed up, then you can do so. bettingweeklystudios.com. It is free. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube as well. That is your lot from us. We're going to be back in a fortnight's time. International break coming up. Don't forget, though, lots of content coming your way. Tennis, we've got the live show every day, 11 a.m. Eastern as well. Follow us at Because We Win. And also we're on Instagram as well with the same address. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye.